Building was completed in 1923, so right around the time of this new riverfront development. And the architect on the job was Alfred Altschuler, and it was designed for the London Guarantee and Accident Company. And so he looked back at this Beaux-Arts style, and the Beaux-Arts style really copies and pastes some ornamentation items from kind of Greco-Roman and not on a tall building here in Chicago. Now, this is a style people are generally pretty familiar with. And because of that, it's a style that's used on a lot of, I'm going to say, important buildings, buildings of stature. You see this a lot on banks. Is up ahead a little bit. It's kind of a honey-colored building, and it has a dome temple on each of the corners, as well as one larger one on the top. This is 35 East Wacker, and it was completed in 1926, and again is in this Beaux-Arts style. Now, although this has that looking back Beaux-Arts style, it was really a revolutionary building when it was first designed and completed in 1926. The architects on the job were Yaver and Dinkelberg, and they intended for this to be a building for jewelers. So to entice the jewelers, they provided this amenity of an elevator for cars. The idea was you could drive directly into the more office space in the building. Now, as we go along the main branch of the river here, on your left, you'll notice right above the river, you'll see this walkway. This is the River Walk, and this again goes back to that Chicago plan of 1909. We didn't see it as it is today until about 2000 gathering areas, and this was intentional. The architects on this job were Ross Barney Architects, and they intended for each section of the Riverwalk to kind of behave like a room within a house. So in the same way you have a kitchen and a bedroom and a dining room, which all serve different purposes, they wanted each section of the Riverwalk to kind of serve a different purpose. Now, on is actually called a pediment, and this building allows me to introduce one of the other architectural styles that I mentioned, the postmodern style. So postmodernism came about in about the 80s, and it looks back at older styles similar to Beaux-Arts. But the 80s were generally known for a certain amount of structure at the top, as well as you'll see it above the front doors of the building. And this is looking back at Greco-Roman architecture, but it's not just copying and pasting it, it's kind of doing it with a certain amount of flair. You're gonna see the LaSalle Wacker building. It's the tan building with a American flag above the front door. It kind of has two wings that are reaching out. This is the LaSalle Wacker building. It was completed in 1930 and designed by Halliburton Root. And it allows me to talk about yet another one of those architectural styles. Notice that it takes up a lot of space at the base, and then as the building is smaller to allow for more light to get to the sidewalk. So for a lot of buildings built around this time, you'll see a similar shape to the LaSalle Wacker building, where it's big at the base and then gets smaller as it grows up. This was also helpful because at the time there wasn't air conditioning. 2 towers and then 2 spires at the top. This is 225 West Wacker, and it is also completed in the postmodern style. So postmodernism, as well as looking back at older styles, also uses what's called contextualism. So the idea is buildings are designed in the context of their surroundings. So if you look at 225, up between this is 333 West Wacker, and it has this beautiful green glass, which is again part of that contextualism. Now, as you might have noticed, the Chicago River doesn't really have a blue color. It is a little bit more green in color for the river. And so that is reflected here in 333 with those beautiful alternating bands of green glass, kind of mirrored after the green color of the river itself. You'll also notice the curve of the building. So we are entering the confluence, basically just a fan all come together. And 333 is right here along the confluence and right kind of at a bend in the river. And so that bend is again mirrored in the architecture of the building itself. So this building really wouldn't make sense if you picked it up and put it here on the banks of the Chicago River and kind of saying hello to its surroundings. sequence. Straight ahead, we have another building that involves curves in its design. This one has a curve at the top, a curve at the bottom, and as we turn, you'll be able to see a red structure in front of the front door. This is River Point. It was completed in 2017 and designed by a lot of the time. Now, I will say some trends we are seeing in contemporary architecture. We are seeing a lot to the entirety of the building. In contemporary architecture, we're also seeing an increased push for sustainability. So both in the construction of a building as well as in the operation of the building, And a great example of that is actually up ahead on the left. You'll see a salmon pink colored building up ahead that's just a big box. This is full just how thick those walls are. But they did it. They ultimately converted this into a residential building. And the architect who was responsible for that conversion was a man by the name of Harry Weese. And right next door to Fulton House, we have another Harry Weese job. These lower buildings with the triangular roof lines up ahead on your left. These are the River Cottages. They were completed in 1988 and designed by Harry Weese. What I think is cool about these is Harry Weese was not only the architect on the job, but he was the developer on this. See, this investment in residential was kind of a new idea. It did pay off because when these River Cottages do come on the market, they do not stay on the market for long. So ended up being a good bet by Harry Weese. To get improved, and so you see they have a lot of windows and they have doors on this side, and you'll even notice this walkway right along the river. In the 90s, there was a city ordinance that was passed that required that any new development have a public walkway as part of that development. So you can see that here in these beautiful townhomes, and how Chicago really does view its river more as an asset and a thing to be embraced and to help the value of your property rather than be something to turn your back on. Now on your right is these black balconies stapled on the exterior, because this has been converted into a residential building. This process of converting a building is called adaptive reuse. And adaptive reuse is great, not only because it lets people like me talk about old buildings that are still standing, but it also is a great tool in this fight for sustainability. The greenest building is one that's already built. The concrete's in place. Who's excited? Yeah, that's usually about how that goes. So these upside down white V's, those diagonal members, are called cross braces. A big challenge for engineers is to get the wind load that's hitting your building down to the foundation below. This park is named Aaron Montgomery Ward Park after Chicago to get goods from the city itself. For his business, he also instituted a money-back guarantee. Again, at the time, people thought this was pretty crazy. The core is a hallmark of this Art Deco style. Now the next building on your right, this rather large building with the horizontal brick lines, massive building. The company employed people called pickers. That was their job description, and it was as well as some conveyor belts going into and out of it. This is Yard 32. It is a concrete production plant. It's actually the 5th largest concrete production plant in the country. Now for those of you who are maybe did not take multiple classes on concrete in college, I'm here to such interesting facts about their surroundings. But I actually want to talk about 2 of the other materials as well.